Good evening, everyone. And in just a moment, Brandon Daugherty, who's been a guest on this show before, he and I are going to break down, we're going to talk about the Libertarian National Convention and the nuttiness that ensued. But we also got a couple other things we're going to cover. I don't know how long we're going to go tonight. Got a lot of stuff that I want to talk about with Brandon. Brandon's got a lot of stuff because he was there. He got to witness it in all of its glory. But before we do any of that, let me start the recording, and then we shall proceed with a Liberty Talk.
In the restaurant of life, we're putting freedom back on the menu. It's the Missouri Liberty Report with John Williams, working with grassroots organizations and legislatures to make Missouri the freest state in the nation. Let freedom ring.
All right, folks, and we are back with another edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Thanks so much to those of you, YouTube, Rumble, KEYK, and MOLibertyRadio.us. Thanks to all of those who watch the live stream, listen, or those of you that grab the podcast. I appreciate each and every one of you and your continuing support. All right, so we got a lot of crazy news to talk about tonight. I've got Brandon Daugherty back. He's running for District 2. He's running out of District 2 for U.S. Congress. He was on the show a few weeks ago, and I didn't have a guest. I told my wife I want to talk about the Libertarian National Convention. And then Brandon, out of the blue, says, hey, you got a guest for Friday? I said, no. He's like, hey, I want to come on. I was at the convention. Like we were wirelessly connected. And he was thinking what I was thinking. I'm like, this is outstanding. This is great because I get to talk to somebody who was actually there to see these things. We also want to get into the Trump indictment, found guilty on 34 counts or 34 felony counts. But I also have a sound clip of a progressive representative in California who's had enough and said, enough of this not going after people and being harsh to people who buy little kids. So we got all that to talk about. But first and foremost, Brandon, welcome back to the show. Good evening to you. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good, John. How are you?
Listening to all these podcasts and hearing everything that went on, I almost get, I don't know why sometimes when I listen to people who were at an event like this and everything that went down, even though it hurts my brain to hear what goes on sometimes, some part of me finds it, I don't know if it's just human behavior or how people interact. Sometimes I'm a nerd watching people interact or hearing about interactions, and I find it so fascinating, and I can't just pry my ears away from it. And it's the thing, too, that these, again, Dave Smith, Tom Woods, Clint Russell, all these podcasts that I listen to, and I'm getting their takes on all this stuff. And it's like, again, I told you earlier, I told my wife, I kind of wish I would have went. I kind of wish I would have went to see this in action because it was just like, this sounds like it's made for TV drama sometimes, but you were there. So before we dive into all the particulars, give us an overall overview of to the convention as a whole.
So I actually had a blast at the convention. This was my first time going to the convention, so seeing how the sausage was made was a lot of fun. Everyone that I loved to see was there. Scott Horton was there. Dave Smith was there. Clint Russell. Spike Cohen. A ton of people were there. They were there like basically the whole weekend. So they were all super nice about as far as taking pictures and everything. A lot of them, if you just hung around long enough, there was a lot of different events and stuff you could go to where you could get one-on-ones and just ask them some questions and kind of hang out with them for 15, 20 minutes, which was awesome. As far as the actual convention goes, the business how it went down, the Sunday was a made for TV drama. The actual voting on the presidential nominee and then voting in re-electing Angela for chair. Those were moments because the crowd was just so into it. I didn't realize, I did not realize how factioned the Libertarian Party was before I got there. People had tried to warn me beforehand, but this was like my first real experience seeing it. I was assuming most people were rallying around the principles of the party, but it was a lot more of rallying around the different factions or against, in specific, the Mises Caucus. They were very polarizing there. And I got into the Libertarian Party to end the wars and end the Fed, and I will continue to be a part of the Libertarian Party as the only one with a platform that stands for ending the war and ending the Fed. So that being said, there's a lot to be said about the nominee for president. I'm sure you're going to have some questions about that for sure, and we'll get into that, I'm sure. But all of the speakers that were there, it was just for someone from Missouri who, is very interested in politics. It was just a very cool experience.
Yeah, I have so many. And okay, again, I am not a member of the Libertarian Party. I support a lot of the candidates, not because I'm supporting the party. I like the candidates' principles. A lot of libertarians, not all of them, but a lot of them are good, in my opinion, on, like you said, ending the Fed, getting out of these unconstitutional wars, no more proxy wars, stop giving money to everybody and their brother, the welfare state, the drug war, all these things. I love the foundation, and I love the non-aggression principle. And like Dave Smith said, he's not there for the party. He's there because of he wants to support the platform, which is the non-aggression principle. And that's a lot of how that's kind of how I feel about it. I'm not there. And, when I first started this show and I interviewed other libertarian candidates, I told people at that time, I don't want people to donate particularly to the party. If there's a candidate that you really like, give directly to the candidate, because the candidate knows exactly where that money needs to be spent. They know best because they're the ones on the ground, running like a chicken with their head cut off, trying to get elected. So, but there, hearing what I heard from Clint and Dave and, Tom Woods, of course, caught the information. Nate from Good Morning Liberty was talking about it. And now you're here, and I really want your perspective. So I guess, okay, let's just start this way. They had Vivek Ramaswamy, Donald Trump, and RFK Jr. all there to speak. I guess the first question is, because everybody heard about the libertarians booing Donald Trump. Everybody heard about that one. But like with Vivek and RFK, what was the crowd like while they were speaking? I know that RFK got booed a little bit when he said something about the CIA and the FBI are corrupt, but if I get in there, I'll fix the FBI and the CIA. And people were like, what? And then there was some boos. But was it a generally pretty civil crowd when they were speaking? Because I know when Trump was, before he came on stage, apparently one guy, Clint, said he felt like there was going to be a slight brawl because the Trump supporters were trying to get up front, and there was a little bit of a to-do. Security had to remove some people, things like that. But what was the crowd like during these speeches? Okay, wait a minute. I'm getting way ahead of myself. Before we go there, I want to ask people who were there. I want to ask people who were in the Libertarian Party now, because I've heard both sides of the spectrum here. What did you think when Angela McArdle and, pretty much the Mises Caucus took over the LNC? What did you think when they said, hey, we got Vivek, RFK Jr., and Donald Trump coming to this convention to speak? What did you think? Did you think that was actually a good move? Or like some people thought, this is stupid. What are we doing here?
So I might not have very many friends left in the Libertarian Party when I finish this podcast, but I will say that I liked it. I liked all three of them being there. Every single person, it just was good for the Libertarian Party. It was good for the branding. It wasn't like we had to sell out our values. They came, we react however we, react how libertarians want to react. And people find out about us. They Google us. They hear our opinions. And I think it's a great way to spread the message of liberty, is to have more eyes on you at any time. You just have to, rise to the occasion when things like that happen. But I loved it. And honestly, this is just, I'm divulging this to, I guess, everyone now. Angela was my first ballot choice for chair because of the people that showed up, because of how the convention was set up, and because of the way that the way the eyes were on the party all of Saturday and all of Sunday. I mean, I have voted for her before then, but still, those moves that she make, the boldness that she's willing to, the risk that she's willing to take. And then also part of it was attending the anti-war rally in Washington, D.C. that they did. This was maybe last year or the year before, but there was a big anti-war rally that they did in connection with, I think, the Green Party or some other party. And I supported that too. And so, she makes bold moves. She draws attention to the party, gets our name out there. So that's why I voted for her. And I liked it. I liked having those candidates there. As far as RFK, or I'll start with Vivek. Vivek was cool. He was cool. He answered questions from Dave Smith and did a debate. I'd call it a debate with Clint Russell. And Clint Russell put his feet to the fire a little bit on some issues. And he said that, Republicans, I'm trying to think of what he said. He said they talk like Ron Paul, but then govern like John McCain, which I thought was a great line. Really put his feet to the fire. So good moment. Good for our party. Crowd was receptive, but whenever he said things that he liked, there was indications that what was going to happen during the Trump speech was going to go a lot worse than it did. Because anytime his name got mentioned during the whole convention, just a chorus of boos would ring out, no matter who was speaking on it. And so whenever I was nervous when Trump was getting ready to go speak about how it was going to go down. But as far as Vivek, I give him the most respect too, because like I said, he actually sat and answered questions compared to RFK and Trump, who they came in, gave their speech, and left. So Vivek, he earned a lot of my respect, and he's always been more libertarian leaning than the other two. So
yeah, Clint was talked on his podcast. I listened to it yesterday on the way home, and he was talking about that moment, because he said, when I speak, I'm scared to death. I don't want to fumble the ball. And he said, man, I was just on it. And he goes, I got up on stage with Vivek, and he mentioned that, that comment. They talk like Ron Paul, govern like John McCain. And I was like, but he said Vivek was so cool about it. Like he burned him, and Vivek pointed at him and fist bumped him after he made a comment on kind of roasted him. And Vivek just took it in stride and went on. Didn't take it personal, which had to have been cool. I mean, if you're debating someone like a Vivek Ramaswamy or anybody, who really caught some national attention after some of the remarks he made about the head of the RNC. And that's nice. My phone just fell. Give me a sec. and all this other stuff. And then he just fist bumps him. I'm like, okay, that guy's, he doesn't. Some of these people are so petty. They're just so petty. And you get into the debate and you roast them a little bit, and you can tell their egos can't handle it. They're like, whoa, and they start freaking out a little bit. But yeah, it was again, the commentary that I caught. I was like, again, not a member of the party, but I was like, I really would have loved to just been there in those moments just to document it and go, because I've heard, not again, just talking to other libertarians, they talk about the convention sometimes, and some of the people that attend, and they're like, there's some people there who really live by, I'll do what I do as long as I don't hurt anybody else. For example, Dave Smith had some dude come up to him wearing a thong and wanted to debate him on the border policy. And he's like, dude, like, how can I, Dave's like, you want to dress like that? Okay. But how do you, and it is true, how do you expect other people to take you seriously, have a serious debate, when you're dressed like that? It is odd. If you're just at a function and you're not going to debate, if you're not going to televise this thing, and people are just like, okay, there's a guy wearing a thong. That's weird, but okay, whatever. But if you want people to take you seriously, whether it's on, foreign policy or the border or whatever, then put on some freaking clothes, man, and take this seriously. Like, what are you doing? And I think that's a lot of people not all libertarians act like that, I know, but the people that do in those situations draw the most attention, and then people are like, look at those circus freaks. Look at that guy in a thong. And they'll just put a box around that and say, there's your Libertarian Party. Now, again, I don't know why you'd go to some huge event and just wear a thong around and people are like, hey, that guy's with it or whatever. He's good representation. But yeah, when you have these three people at your convention, I don't know, I would think maybe you would tell people, all right, let's all act a little more civilized. Everybody wear clothes, okay? All your clothing. Because we want to put off a good, we want the message to get out, and we want people to take us seriously. Because I am with you on the fact that I think it was good to have those people there. I'm with you. A lot of people were bent out of shape, like, oh, and I'm sorry. There seems to be, well, actually, I'm not sorry. I'm just saying there seems to be some woke people in the Libertarian Party, because when you bring up Donald Trump's name, they act like the left does, and they just lose their mind automatically. It's like, now, here's something, and I want you to comment on this. Now, I'm not saying that I trust Donald Trump, because I don't. But him being on stage saying, day one, I will pardon Ross Ulbricht. Now, if he would get elected and he would hold to that promise, that's huge for the Libertarian Party. Because not only did you get Donald Trump to utter those words, you also got a boatload of Trump supporters looking up that name. Right?
Oh yeah, definitely. No, I think it's also like, trust me, I think it's awesome. Like, trust what's happening to Ross Albright and Snowden and Assange and anybody who's been just attacked by the legal system, the legal and justice system, that I wholly support them getting out. So yes, I think it was great that he said that, for sure. I think it's indicative of what the Libertarian Party is capable of, though, because we don't need to win a majority or become president. We just need enough of the vote where they have to listen to us. And then we can move the needle on issues like this. And so I think it was, if he does go in there and do this on day one, I do want to credit the Libertarian Party before I got there. Nothing I did, but the Libertarian Party of the past for putting that together and making that happen. Will he do it? Yet to be seen. And I'm sure we've got more to talk about Trump. We'll talk about Trump later. But yes. But I do think it was good for the party, and I do think it will be good for the party if he does pardon Albright, and I do think it would show that third party activism does work, because you might not win a bunch of House seats, but people will have to listen to you in that because they need your vote.
Yeah, and that's the hard thing to gauge here. Are they saying things because they're trying to, is Donald Trump trying to persuade people in the Libertarian Party, maybe those who haven't made up their mind yet? Or is he trying to get some votes, or does he actually mean it? And you don't know until maybe this guy gets reelected. And you know what? Let's talk about some of the takeaways some of the things you came away with after going to the convention. What are some of the key things that you came away with? I'm guessing you had a much better understanding of how things work at a convention like that, picking the president and vice presidential nominees. But what are some other takeaways that you had after attending this convention?
Oh, man. That there are a lot of good candidates running all over the country for the Libertarian Party. That they're all, not all of them believe in the certain stances of other libertarians. Most of them are down to earth people on social issues, and they're also, like I said, they're very get the government out of our business. I ran into Michael White from Arkansas. He's a super nice guy. Talked to him a little bit about his campaign. It's a two-way race against a Democrat in a pretty split district, so that's pretty exciting. A couple other candidates from some other states. I met a few guys from Massachusetts. I can't remember his name. I'll have to look it up. He's running for governor of North Carolina, and he was a really, really nice guy. Really well-rounded, really smart. I learned that if one faction of the party doesn't like you, they can slow down business indefinitely. They can just continue to make motions and points of order. I know that you really need to know Robert's rules to understand exactly what's going on all the time. And because it was hours and hours of just, is this motion a motion? Does it need 2/3? Does it need 7/8? Like, it's a lot more minute detail than actually just like up and down voting on a bunch of things. And I do like the party's, I guess it's ranked choice voting. I don't know if I guess it's not ranked choice, but the way, someone has to win a majority and you eliminate somebody until you get there. That way, someone who wins a plurality can't just take it. You have to actually win the majority of the you have to win the will of the whole group, at least the majority of them. So I like our voting process on a lot of things. And like I said, I voted for Angela for chair because she does get a lot done. So
yeah, I'm again not a Libertarian Party member, but I see myself as more of a Mises type of libertarian. That faction, I like those guys. They're no nonsense, and I like their take on pretty much every subject. I don't think I found anything yet where someone from the Mises caucus says something I'm like, oh, wait, that doesn't sound very libertarian of you. I've just never run across a Mises type of person where I'm like, how much crack did you smoke this morning before you said that thing that you just said? So I know that is not always a friendly, or that doesn't always bring you friends, saying that you're from one faction of the Libertarian, or you agree with a certain faction of the Libertarian Party. That can get you, I know two people that were in a party. One was at, I don't know if there was a state fair, and somebody said something about the Mises caucus, and the guy's like, oh, those people. And I'm like, really? I mean, in the end, there's a lot of common ground between libertarians in general. It's sad. It sucks that there's these factions. There seems to be right-leaning libertarians. There seems to be some very woke left-leaning libertarians. Then you've got the Mises, and then you've just got libertarians that just say, I just want to get somebody elected who will leave me alone. I don't need all the shenanigans. Can we just elect people that'll leave us alone and not steal from us and not hurt anybody? I can't imagine what it's like being in the mix of all these different factions in the Libertarian Party, hundreds of them being in the same room. And I don't know if you're like, hey, should I wear a helmet or is it safe in here? But it does suck, because if at some point you got to find common ground. Now, again, I know because we've seen it. We've seen the screenshots of libertarians who wanted to virtue signal with their masks and all this other stuff. It doesn't matter if, because I don't go, this guy's from this party, I'm automatically getting my vote. But if somebody in that party who acts like that gets the nomination, I'm out. I cannot do it. I cannot let go of my principles because somebody is running in a certain party is automatically. Same way with Joe Jorgensen. I couldn't do it. The first thing she does is she comes out and she says some woke stuff, and I'm like, you guys are supposed to be so different. What? Let me ask you. I'm not bringing you on here to beat up on certain people, but what are your take? Do you see what I'm seeing? Like there seems to be some woke left libertarians in there, kind of like fumbling around.
Feel free to ask me any question you want without filter. I will never get offended by a question you ask me. I promise you that. So if you want to talk about, let's say, Chase Oliver, if you have any particular Chase Oliver statements or questions, feel free. Go ahead. Okay. I guess I want to address the elephant in the room with Chase Oliver. I do not support giving puberty blockers to minors. I know this is on the radio, right? I don't know what you can and can't talk about on the radio, but I don't support giving puberty blockers to minors. So I don't. I think we have age of consent laws for a reason. You have to be 18 to join the military. You have to be 18 to buy cigarettes, and 21 in some places now. You have to be 21 to buy alcohol and go to a bar, because you make better decisions as you get through your teens. And so I think that this is it's a very serious issue to a lot of people, and I understand and respect that. And that's why I'm clarifying that I do not support that stance, and neither do I support men competing in women's sports. I don't support that. If you were born a male, you should only be able to compete in male sports. You shouldn't be able to compete in female sports. It's an inherent advantage. It's clear as day to anybody with anyone who can pay attention to the sports at all. So I'm going to start there by saying that. So as far as I still believe this right here, between Donald Trump, who took 7 wars to 7 wars, RFK Jr., who has called the Palestinian people the most pampered people on the planet, who also would continually fund their genocide, and Joe Biden. Chase Oliver to me is still the only candidate who's going to end the war and end the Fed. He's the only candidate, in my opinion, who's going to do both. So for me, on Election Day, unless something crazy changes, I'll probably still be pulling the lever for Chase Oliver. That being said, that caveat being said, if he wants to continue to run his campaign in the direction of the wokeness, I'm going to distance myself from his campaign. So, you know what I mean? I'm not going to go on stage and support all the things that he supports. And I don't have to do that. I'm pulling my lever for my own conscience. The one I've made with, my spiritual guidance will guide me towards who I want to pick. And it doesn't mean I have to support all their issues or support them outright as a candidate. That's where I'll start.
Well, and I have family members on Facebook who will make a comment about something. And one time they said something about, it's this back and forth about Trump and Biden. And I said, you don't have to vote for either one of these two guys. You can vote for somebody else. And I want to ask you your opinion, because I know you hear this. I know as a candidate you hear this, okay? Oh, well, all I want you to do is vote, but you're throwing your vote away. And I have to continually say to people, I'm voting my conscience. If I don't want to vote for, let's say I decide I like the guy running out of the Constitution Party better. I vote for him because I feel like he best represents me, and he seems like a person that wants to abide by the rules laid forth in the Constitution. That's not a throwaway vote. That's not a throwaway vote at all. But how often do you hear this? Oh, I don't want to vote for a Libertarian because it's taken away a vote from the person I'd most like. I don't want the other side to. I don't want that Democrat to win, so I'm going to vote for the Republican and not give my vote to you because that takes away.
So here's usually how that goes for me. Is I get them to agree with what I'm saying, because I don't usually start with who are you voting for in November, blah, blah, blah. It's usually like, hey, are you from around here? Do you live around here? If I'm knocking on doors, I'm like, I start with, my name's Brandon. I'm running for Congress. I want to end the wars. I want to fix the debt. I want to fix deficit spending. I think government spending is going to cripple our future. It's already crippling us now. Get them to agree with me, and then they're like, well, what party are you with, or something of that nature. And then it's Libertarian, and they're like, well, I can't vote for that because of blank X, Y, or Z, like you said, because, well, then the Democrat will win or the Republican will win. And to me, it takes, I say, well, first I say it takes courage to vote with your conscience too. To vote for one party and compromise certain issues, like especially important ones like war and deficit spending. It's important to note that if you're voting for a Republican and not a Libertarian, even though you support Libertarian candidates, it's because you're afraid of the Democrat. And you can't be afraid of the Democrat, especially because in my particular race, like Ann Wagner, the Republican I'm running against, she voted for FISA 702. She voted for all of the war spending. She votes for all of the things, like she votes for things that establishment Democrats vote for. Like right now, just to emphasize, Hakeem Jeffries supports Mike Johnson as Speaker of the House. If you want to know how in lockstep the Uniparty is right now, there it is right there. So, and also, I also differentiate myself. So I'm not saying I try to be like, well, it's not about voting Libertarian versus Democrat versus Republican. It's about voting for someone who's going to end the wars and fix the deficit, which are the two most important things in the country. That's what I tell them. So I'm like, if you're voting, like, you can vote Republican to beat the Democrat, but if both of them aren't going to do what we need done, then you're wasting your vote voting for the Uniparty.
And when you're talking about that, Missouri, up in Jefferson City, there's a uniparty there. There really is. There are a lot of Republicans that vote right along with Democrats on things that you would think they wouldn't, but they do. And so it's like, okay, what are we doing here? Because that word, as my friends always say, conservative, not conservative, but conservative, because they're running a con job on people, and they keep getting elected because the people apparently can't see through the game that's being played right in front of their eyes. And it's like, we're still in the same mess. Do you not? You can't just, well, it's leadership's fault, or no, it's kind of you guys that voted for these, what they call rhinos, or some people call them conservatives. You keep putting them in out of fear that the other one will win. If the other one wins, you're going to get the same result. You're going to get the same exact thing that you're getting right freaking now. So, I don't know, maybe change it up a little bit. In the primaries, if there's no Libertarian, but there's a guy that you know is sound on how to govern responsibly, which is almost an oxymoron, don't get me wrong, but he knows his role as a representative, and he understands the Constitution and the rules set forth therein. Why are you so afraid of someone who acts, so afraid of a member of the opposite party who's acting just like the guy you elected last time, scaring you away from voting someone who's more principled, who actually puts principle over party? That's what blows my mind. 5% of these people, it's party over principle. They're not principled. They're like, I'm going to say the right things to get elected, and then when I get in there, I'm going to pull the wool all over all your eyes, and then I'm going to point fingers in the other direction, and they're literally basing everything on the. It's like these people are dumb. They're not even they're gonna believe me when I lie to them on whose fault it is. I'm gonna deflect, and they're so dumb that they're gonna keep falling for this until I term out. People should start feeling insulted by the. Well, they should feel insulted by their representative, and they should also feel a little ashamed of themselves to keep falling for the same party trick over and over again. It is infuriating. And so what kind of response do you get from people when you say that to them? Like, hey, you realize that this Republican is still funding, you're afraid of this, but they're acting just like this person already votes. What kind of response do you get when you say something like that?
So I have a policy statement printed up on Ann Wagner that lists all the stuff that she's voted for. Like it's a list right there. It's like 5 things. I could grab one. I have one right next to me. Hold on. I don't know how well you can see it, but this is the front side. Is the text reading the right way where you can read it, or is it blurry?
Let me see. Let me pull it up.
It's a picture of Ann Wagner standing next to Vladimir Zelensky. And then, so it says, Ann Wagner is for World War. And then the other side is a picture of me that says, your tax dollars do not belong overseas, funding another endless war. And then the back is where it's got this, like, it says Wagner equals swamp. And then it's got the list of things on there. It's like, she voted to extend FISA 702. She voted for omnibus spending. She's funded by BlackRock and Pfizer. She continually votes to raise the debt ceiling, and she's been in Congress for 6 terms. And so when I'm like, that's what you're voting for when you vote for the Republican this time, they usually go, you've got my vote.
Interesting. Now, I like to hear that. I like to hear that. And so I was talking to my wife this morning because she was worried in this election cycle. She was a little worried that I was going to run for state rep. And I was like, I changed my mind. I'm like, I don't have the time to go to these meet and greets. I work a full-time job. How am I going to make time to go to these different counties and introduce myself and yada, yada, yada? So I was worried that I was going to be trying to run a campaign by word of mouth more than getting out there and talking to people and spreading the message. So I decided that's a good way to lose an election. And then it happened too late. Our current state rep said in front of somebody that lives 15 minutes away from me, because we've defeated a school bond 2 times in a row, that he would help change the language on our local ballot to make sure the school bond won the next time. Now, if he'd have said that back in November last year, there's a very good chance that I would have run. Now, would I have won? Probably not. But I told my wife, my first thing would have been to go to every candidate meet and greet and say what he said and point out everything, voting for gas taxes, voting for this. And I said, all I'm doing, I drag a big wooden spoon behind me as I walk up the aisle and stir the pot and stand back and watch the fireworks. If I could get people just to look at the dude and go, what have you been doing? Yeah, why did, and just get people asking, why did you do that? Why on earth did you do something like that? I would be extremely happy if I could stir the pot and get people to start asking the questions and looking at things in a way where you go, that's not how government's supposed to run. That's not how your conservative butt is supposed to be doing things. You're supposed to be doing it this way. This is what you told us. This is how you're operating. One of these things is not like the other. So, but he uttered those words like, I don't know, a week or two, or no, it was just not too long after the school bond failed again. He said those words. I hope to God he doesn't win his reelection after saying that. He's a nice guy, but he's about as sharp as a bag of wet hair, and he tends to favor the political wins. He doesn't seem to have a spine. And I'm just like, you're not my type of guy. I just don't have much use for you. And so, yeah, like I said, if he would have said that stuff in November, holy smokes, I'd have been burning rubber to go up to Jeff City just to run and then stir, baby. And I don't know. It's probably good that I didn't. I'd probably be in trouble with somebody for something that I would say, but
well, I tell you, and this is just my personal opinion on it, that running, especially when you're running a house race, they have to have a reason not just to vote for you, but to not vote for your opponent too. Like there's a few libertarians that I know that are running two-way races for House seats in Missouri. And I'm like, then you need to find the voting record of the person you're going against to find out why they wouldn't want that person in office. Because people don't necessarily want to change. Like if they have an incumbent and they see that sign all over town, they're just going to hit the same button over again. But on a totally unrelated note too, if you ever do decide to run for state house, let me know. I would be happy to help your campaign. I'd love to happy to help any libertarian in Missouri who's listening to this. If they want help on their state house rep campaign or anything that they're running for, I'd be happy to help. I print flyers. And I also have a decent strategy idea, which is I've got these door hanger flyers made up. They're really cheap to make, and I think that all state house candidates running from the Libertarian Party should go out the week after the primary and put them on you can get them printed super cheap. So all it takes is the effort. You just got to get some volunteers between now and August, which is the primary. And right after the primary, when people are excited, you go and hand out your flyer that you won your Libertarian primary and you'll be on the ballot in November, and tell them what you're about. And then the week before the election, you put one out that's a reason you can't vote for the opponent. So not only have you got your name out there once, but then also a reason not to vote for the guy. So when they see his name on the ballot and they say, vote for you for this, that's what they'll be thinking, because it might be the only time they see anyone's name before they get to the ballot box.
Interesting. Yeah, well, I have I think Tom March thinks I'm joking, but I'm halfway serious. If Tom Martz would say, John, I'll be your LA if you win state rep. I told my wife today, if Tom Martz would be my LA, who was, if you don't know Tom is our state constitution guy. He teaches classes and everything else on it. If he would be my LA, I told her, I said, I'd probably run. I'd be the most, besides Mike Moon, I would be Mike Moon's the most disliked guy on the Senate side because he votes constitutionally about 80-something% of the time. I'm going to end up being the most hated guy on the House side because I'm going to keep voting no for stuff that goes against the rules or the Constitution. People aren't going to like me very much. But Tom thinks he needs bail money to be my LA. And so, he's going to get arrested for saying a bad thing. So he won't be my LA. And I'm like, dang it, come on, Tom. But Tom, so if you ever get a chance, Brandon, go back through, and the last time I had Tom on, I put up the spreadsheets. It'll show now this is state-wise, how they voted constitutionally, and it's by highest to lowest. On the House side, the highest was 59%. Now, on the Senate side, it was 80-something%, and that's Mike Moon. Mike Moon runs as a Republican. He might as well be a Libertarian the way he does things. And then below him, I think there were a couple of 70%ers. But, I saw people who go around and brag about being a constitutional conservative, and they voted constitutionally 39% of the time. So... but he's part of an organization. That's what they do. It's the Locke and Smith Foundation. They go through and look at every piece of legislation. They see if it's constitutional or not, so they'll break that down. And then they look at every vote of every candidate, and they'll say they voted constitutionally this many times. And
that's awesome.
It is. And these people put in some major work. So I met Tom at a campaign event for Robert Smith when he ran for state rep in 2022, I believe. And first time I'd met him, he got up and spoke on the Missouri Constitution. And then I saw him at Catherine Dreyer's event a little bit later on. Then I've had him on a show a few times, and I went and hung out with him in Springfield a while back when Chris Ann Hall and Robert Brown and William Federer were all down there in Springfield. So I've gotten to know Tom a little bit, and he's a super smart guy. But yeah, I wish he'd just be my LA, and then it would make because then I would be assured. If I was unsure about, I don't know, this one's, I'm not getting a gist, Tom would be like, don't do it. He would just, don't. He would smack me in the head and be like, don't be dumb, and then we'd go on. So I want to ask you about something that occurred at the convention, because it just, we keep, this is me and having a guest on, and we just go off-road. It's fine. It's a conversation. But so I know that in the end, in the beginning stages, Rechtenwald was winning.
Mm-hmm.
And then supposedly Mike Termott had discussed with Rechtenwald about bringing his delegates to Rechtenwald to help him, and then Mike Termott maybe get the VP. And at the last minute, he switches from Rechtenwald to Chase Oliver. And people, again, the podcasts I listened to were like, listen, this is politics, but that was really dang dirty what he did. And they basically said, nah, he's a line. So you have Chase Oliver and a line cop. And I just started laughing because I didn't know how else to respond. Did you catch that, or did you see that happening?
The saddest part of it all. I had to leave after round 5 voting. I didn't get to stay for the whole thing. I had to leave right. So I was there for the whole thing. I was there until at least 6:30. Here's the thing. My hotel that night was in Columbus, Ohio. So I had to leave the convention and get to my hotel before that was 3 states away, basically. So I didn't get to stay for the actual nomination win. I also heard this rumor, and again, this is all rumor, and I think we probably listened to the same podcast, so this might have came from the same place you heard it, but that Mike Termott had actually said about Chase Oliver that he'd be the worst thing for the party if he was nominated. Had said that. This is a rumor that I'd heard on one of these podcasts or one of these shows, is that Mike Termott had actually said that about Chase Oliver at some point. And then this is, and I'm sure you heard about this. You weren't like this. I can't find this speech anywhere, but it was this speech that, first we did this straw poll voting on who was going to get to speak at the which presidential candidate was going to get to speak at the Trump thing. And I don't know if Rechtenwald won it, and that's why he got to do it, but he was the only presidential nominee that spoke before Trump. It was Trump, and then it was Rechtenwald, and then maybe, I don't remember if Clint Russell spoke, but then I know Dave Smith spoke to us before, Angela spoke, and then Trump went on. And so Angela is Mises, and she won re-election by 50%, but she won it, which means that the party was not ready to give up on Mises or anything like that. Michael Rechtenwald gave a really bad speech on Saturday night. And in my opinion, at the time, I was like, this is one of the most, everyone, even Dave Smith and all the Mises people were like, eyes are on us, guys. This is one of the most important moments for the Libertarian Party. Don't blow it. Don't blow it. That's what they were telling us. That's what Dave Smith was telling us. Don't blow it. Don't blow it. Don't go crazy. Don't make us look stupid on stage. He's here to talk to us. The world's watching. And then Rechtenwald went up there and gave a really, it was uncomfortable. He slurred his words. It was not good. It was like he was having a hard time even forming coherent sentences for the first half. Pulled it together a little bit by the end, but for the first half of the speech, it was really hard to watch. And there's rumors going on. Like, he admitted that he took an edible, like a gummy, to relax. And that's why he gave such a bad speech. I heard another rumor that he was on other substances. I'm not going to divulge who or where I heard that, but it was the kind of bad speech where you go, if you were on the fence about this guy, or if you were Mises adjacent, but you weren't in lockstep, because they're a pretty organized group. When their voters are all voting in unison almost every time. Delegates from the Mises caucus are very in lockstep. So to lose that 5% that you needed, I honestly believe it was on Saturday night when Rechtenwald gave that speech. And I talked to a lot of people who were like, that was like, it was really, like they were like, if that's, I mean, they were people telling me they wouldn't vote for him because of that, because he bombed on one of the biggest, on what could have been a big moment for the Libertarian Party. And I'm not saying in retrospect that it was that big of a deal or all of that, but I'm saying at the time when you're there and you're at the convention and the emotions are running high, it was a really tough. I mean, so whenever the next day when it came to voting, and so Mike Termott gets eliminated and all the delegates got to go somewhere. I mean, if he would have backed Rechtenwald, he probably would have been Rechtenwald if he would have not backed Chase. And I think Chase actually had someone else in mind that he wanted for VP, actually, that wasn't Mike. But then when it came down to them two and he needed Mike's votes, he took them, and the rest is history.
Yeah, it's, I mean, I personally liked Rechtenwald. I had him on his show. I liked his message. I thought he was great. And then I heard that and I was like, Now I know that somebody in the live stream liked, was it Josh Smith?
Yeah,
who was also Mises guy.
Again, another divulgence, another thing I'm just going to get off my chest. Josh Smith was my first ballot vote.
Okay. That's cool.
Right. I like Josh's message a lot. Very charismatic guy, very anti-war. I really believed his anti-war message. And and a lot of people I know like Josh, and I trust their opinion implicitly. Or explicitly, whatever the phrase is. I trust their opinion heavily, a lot. So whatever. Josh was my first vote. And, but then after that, it was, again, I wasn't in on this whole like Mises verse, because here's the thing. I've actually done a lot of research since about like what the Mises Party was before and the candidates they ran before, and like the history of Bill Weld and and all of that. So I understand the Mises a lot more than I did going in, but at the same time, I wasn't against them to begin with. I was very neutral going in. I kept referring to myself as the neither caucus because I was neither for the CLC in the old ways or like in lockstep with Mises. And so, Chase is our nominee. He's the nominee for the LP. So it's one thing. He didn't also immediately like come out and he came out and addressed it in the worst way possible. I've got his Twitter page pulled up here. Let me see. Just as soon as he won the nominee, like his first tweet afterwards was like his first tweet on policy, because his first tweet was like, help me and Mike Termott move the party forward, which is great. But then his first like real tweet after winning the nominee was, politicians and bureaucrats don't belong in the business of healthcare. Your healthcare is between you and your trusted healthcare provider and a parent if you're a minor. This also means that doctors should not be forced by government and insurance companies to make decisions that doctors should not be forced by governments or insurance companies to make decisions that go against their beliefs, their oath, or their best interest of their patient. And my problem with that tweet is that not only is it basically saying that minors can consent to whatever they want as long as there's a parent there to agree to it, which is a whole nother conversation to have and a very strange opinion, but also it's like the most polarizing time for the party because you understand that all of this stuff is coming out and that's why a bunch of people are attacking you. And instead of making this about in the war, in the Fed, unite the party, you address the worst critique about you and don't make anybody feel any better about it.
No, what I saw was him and Termott and some other guy holding up a sign that said hatred won't make America great. And I thought, okay, one of your first things that you're going to do is hold up one of the most woke slogans that you can come up with. It's like, okay, who are you pandering to? Are you pandering to libertarians? Or are you trying to pander to the left? In my humble opinion, if you're going to pull someone from another party to the Libertarian Party, most likely you're going to pull conservatives before you pull liberals to the Libertarian Party. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that, just because liberals are more scared of Donald Trump than they are of change. Like than they are willing to change. Like, like they're not going to go for the Green Party. The only minor exception might be that young voters who are anti-genocide and are looking for a new political home, which young people are looking for a new political home. If you have a candidate that's anti-genocide and fiscally responsible, that might resonate with young conservatives. And but this doesn't help with young conservatives at all, and also young liberals. Like, you might be able to win over young liberals with the anti-war. Like, it might help in some way, but it definitely doesn't help me in my race. That's for sure. And I'm just being honest. That's the thing you're going to get about me as a candidate and as a person, is I'm just going to be 100% honest with you. But so that's really doesn't help me. Chase Oliver winning the nominee over any other candidate in there does not help me. That does not mean I'm not going to support Chase. It just means that definitely his social policies are losing policies. Whether they're not the most important policies to me. I understand for some people, especially those with kids. I'm actually, and like I said on the last time I show, my first kid's expected in October. We found out it is a girl, and I don't want men playing in sports with those girls. So, again, I'm so anti-war, so end the Fed, that I will look past this for the sake of the party as well. But it doesn't make it easy.
No, and just from one father to another, isn't it funny how being a parent or becoming a parent makes you look at things just a little bit differently, especially when it comes to things like that? Like, people who aren't parents may necessarily not really prescribe to one thing or the other. They're just kind of neutral, like, I don't want to get involved. You become a parent, for the most part, if you're smart. If you have more than two brain cells to rub together, you would go, I'm not sure I want a guy, becoming playing on a women's basketball team and just dunking on my daughter all the time, or wrestling or whatever. Like, I don't want a guy in the same locker room with my daughter dressing to change for whatever game they're about to play. I'm not real comfortable with that. And so, it's just, I don't know. All right, for those of you in the KEYK audience, thank you very much for joining me again this week. Again, if you want to hear more of the conversation, you look up Missouri Liberty Report Plus on just about anywhere you can get your podcast, or come over and join us on YouTube and Rumble. I record every Friday night right around 6:30. Unless I do something dumb and can't get it right, then sometimes I'm a little late. But generally on Friday nights at 6:30 p.m., you can join us right here in the live stream as I interview people like Brandon here, or what have you. And if you want to check out more of what Brandon has to say, you can also go to Daugherty. That's DAUGHERTY 4 Missouri.
Congress, the number 4 Congress.
God, why do I always get that wrong? Okay, DaughertyForCongress.com. I thought I had it right, and I still screwed it up. Anyway, go check out his site and give this man some support. Dude, I thought I had it. Oh, my God, that really irritates me that I got it wrong again.
It's okay. I appreciate the shout out. No, I don't, it's fine.
Okay.
You're good. Doesn't
okay.
bother me.
So, I forgot where I was. Okay, let's get in because let's get into this. Because there's hot takes everywhere. So Trump gets found guilty on 34 felony counts for this hush money thing, and influencing an election or whatever. It's probably going to get overturned in an appeal because of the way this went down. I've seen social media posts with the good take, which is you guys are again. This is a political witch hunt. I don't even like Trump. It's a political witch hunt. If you think it's not, you're a fool, in my opinion. But I have friends who said, "Oh, now you're going to pay attention to how corrupt the justice system is now because your cult leader got himself screwed over. Now you're going to pay attention. What happened to all these other people? Some people who have been put to death because of a prosecuting attorney." Or maybe there was no DNA evidence to exonerate. What this has been going on in nary a whisper But because your cult leader is getting hammered, now you're upset about the justice system, which I think is a good take in this situation. It is an important thing to bring up. But what is your take on this circus sideshow stuff? Because in the meantime, while this is going on, and this is splashed across every website, newspaper, whatever, we also have Biden saying that, oh, yeah, by the way, Ukraine, we're giving you these missiles with a 200-mile range. Go ahead and launch them. Just don't launch them into Russia. But we seem to be taking a little bit closer step to World War III. But Trump's going to be the headline for weeks to come while we're seemingly progressing to World War III because we have a bunch of idiots in charge.
This is why I love your show. Yes, you're so right about everything you just said. That like it is a political witch hunt, and it's not. It's like Trump let Julian Assange and Edward Snowden sit in prison all 4 years that he was there. Well, I guess not prison because Snowden's where is Snowden? Is
he's
he
in Russia. Yeah,
Russia. Yeah, but he's free in Russia.
Yes.
So Snowden's in Russia, exiled from the United States. And Julian Assange has been in custody and all over, like I think it was the Ecuadorian or somewhere in South America. He was in their embassy and he's just been bouncing around embassies and he's been imprisoned. And for the crime of publishing the truth about our government. Like I didn't agree with everything RFK Jr. said at our convention, but he did say that Julian Assange does not belong in prison. He needs to have a statue built of him, and it needs to be put right in front of the Capitol. And so, like I said, I don't agree with everything RFK Jr. said, but do I have that much sympathy for Trump, like someone I despised foreign policy, who let other people rot in jail for exposing the corruption that he's now currently incarcerated with? So do I have a ton of sympathy for him? No. Is it a bad look for our country? Yes. It is an abomination to our judicial system. They're targeting a political rival with the law. It's disgusting, and every person should be standing against it. And if there was a rally for it, I'd go. But if there was a rally for just about anything else important, like there's a ton of more things more important. Like you said, like this is a distraction from World War III that they're getting away with.
Yeah, and it seems if Stalin or some of these other communist type dictators were alive right now, they'd be thrilled. They'd be thrilled to see that Khrushchev's words are coming to fruition, which is the communism is going to infiltrate your country. And we'll just invade you from within. We're not sending troops over. We'll just invade you with socialism and change your whole political system. And we're going to rot it from within. Instead of attacking you from across the sea, we'll just embed these socialists and just rot your political system. And if Khrushchev could sit up in his grave right now and clap, he would. Because of what is going on right now. And again, I don't like Trump, but I also don't have Trump derangement syndrome either. I don't have to. If you say Trump's name, I don't start crying, Orange Man bad, beating my chest and pulling out my hair because I'm not retarded. Okay? I have brain cells. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I'm not the dumbest guy either. And I'm not going to let my emotions overrule my common sense to look at something and step back and go, if you can't see this as anything more than a political witch hunt, then you have drank a whole gallon of the Kool-Aid, whether it's the red Kool-Aid or whatever. But here's the thing, and again, one of my family members on Facebook posted something, and I said, there are people in here, there's people. I have family members I know for sure who are just like, oh, we got the Orange Man. I told one of my cousins, this is going to turn around and it's going to affect one of their people one of these days. And then they're going to be really upset. And I'm going to have absolutely no pity for them at all. In fact, I might point and laugh at them and say, This is what some of us were trying to tell you, but you were doing your happy dance and couldn't bear to listen to any of the words that any of us were saying on this stupidity.
The thing is, too, is that especially with these convictions, he's not barred from running for president. I don't even, so I was trying to look up the moment he was found guilty, what the appeals process is. And I wasn't able to find it right away. I don't know if I'm assuming he's got like a 30-day period to appeal and it's going to go to the Supreme Court or whatever. But he's not, I don't think he's in jail, is he? Like, is he in a jail in New York?
He hasn't been sentenced yet. This was just they found him guilty on these charges, but there hasn't been a sentencing date. So it could be fine. It could be massive fines. It could be prison for however long. That hasn't been announced yet. It's just he was found guilty on 34 counts, as far as I know.
Right. I just like normally I watch a lot of true crime shows. It's one of my guilty pleasures is a lot of like YouTube true crime. But I've never heard of anybody being convicted of a felony and then not being in jail until the sentencing. Normally, like if you go out and kill somebody and then you get found guilty, they don't let you free until the sentencing. Usually you're convicted of a felony and you're in jail awaiting sentencing. I just was confused as to, again, not that I think he belongs in jail for this particular thing, but I was just confused as he's not in jail. He's like found guilty, but still out.
And it makes you wonder. And I'm just throwing this out here. I don't know. I'm not a political expert, and I don't try to have a brain like these freaks do, because then next thing you know, I have dementia or Alzheimer's, and they're putting me in a home. But it makes you wonder if they're just trying to pressure him, which, don't get me wrong, he wasn't very constitutional. He did a lot of things that I thought were stupid. But if they're just trying to get him to say, all right, I'll do all these things, just let me get back into office. Because some of the cases seem to be crumbling when he reversed his stance on like Ukraine, Russia, and the things he said about Israel and Palestine, some of these other things, going to build the FBI a bigger building. Some of these cases seem to start collapsing. It's like, okay, is this just political pressure to get him under their thumb? So if he wins, then there is no draining the swamp like he didn't do last time and all these other things. Like, they're just going to he's going to make all these promises that he won't keep, because to save his own skin, he's going to just cave and do whatever the state wants him to do. Voodoo Queen says white-collar crime versus violent crime. I think they just want to bankrupt him, and that seems very plausible. Yes, I think that's maybe part of it. There's going to be more big fines come out of this. I know apparently his website crashed because immediately after the verdict, he raised like $34 million in a few hours, and the site crashed from so many people hitting it. And that's the other thing that bothers me, Brandon. It's not just this court case. It's not just the ignorance of people to know that this, to not have an idea that this goes on all the time to just people who aren't presidents and super rich. In fact, they get it way worse because they can't afford the high-dollar attorneys to help them out, right? Mm-hmm. It's the fact that this is just polarizing both sides of the political aisle even more. And it's dividing people even more. And they cannot see that, again, we're funding a genocide in one area. We're ostracizing a lot of other countries, and we're talking smack, and we're making these horrible foreign policy decisions, and then we're marching closer to World War III. And nobody in either political aisle, I shouldn't say nobody, the majority of the people on both sides of the major political spectrum can't see any of this is happening because they're all caught up in the Orange Man legacy, or lack thereof, and his crimes, or he's the criminal, he's not a criminal, he's the worst thing since someone burnt toast at my 12th birthday party, or whatever. It's all these things, and nobody sees, they can't seem to see the direction we're heading in, which is just a downward death spiral of our political system, our financial system, our foreign policy. Every institution is being drugged into this mess. Everybody's getting on board, saying stupid things, distracting the public because some of these people are not smart enough to do their own thinking. They have to depend on the media or social media or some schmuck expert to tell them how to think and how to speak. And we're just being drugged down. The people who just want to be left alone to make our own decisions are all being drugged down by people who can't open their eyes and ears to see what's going on 2 feet in front of their face because Orange Man's over here. Somebody's beating a drum on the right and the left. And we're all caught in it. We don't even want to be a part of it. And we're still all being drugged down with this stupidity.
It says that I'm having issues. Can you hear me?
I hear you fine, bro.
Okay, good. So, yeah, one of the points to what you just said, Thomas Massey tweeted the other day that it seems like in all of these primaries that Trump is endorsing the moderate Republican versus the conservative Republican, which is assuming to say that he's supporting assuming to say that I think it's from his Congress account because he's got two. I know he's got two different ones, but one of them tweeted that out, which goes to it's just one of the indications. So also Trump endorsed Mike Rogers in Michigan instead of Justin Amash, and I from one of the big news websites, it was said that Donald Trump was promising Nikki Haley a cabinet position, which happens in politics all the time. But if you're the Drain the Swamp guy, you got to understand that she was on the board of Boeing. So was it Boeing? I believe so. So I think that most likely or not, it's going to be either Secretary of State or Secretary of Defense, where she's just going to continue to send billions of dollars to the arms industries, which, something I found out, which I doing some reading and some other, just kind of piecing things together. The people who benefit the most from war is people have said it forever. It's the banks, but specifically for America, every time our country goes into debt, every time that we print treasury bonds, the banks buy them up. It's either the Federal Reserve, which is a supposedly private institution. I know I'm preaching to the choir at this point, but the supposedly private institution that is literally on the top of every single dollar bill printed in America, that is buying up a bunch of treasury bonds. And not only that, but not only does the Fed own a bunch, but separately, depository institutions is its own category that owns a bunch. And then securities and trades owns a bunch. And then insurance companies own a bunch. Foreign investors own a bunch. And so these people benefit every time we spend. And anyone who's thinking that, politics might be corrupt and the banks are the ones corrupting the system should go to opensecrets.org and search their candidate and just see how many banks, how many insurance companies and investment companies donate to the politician running in your area. This is for the national level. At the state level, it's not going to be those same people, but on the national level, it's the big banks and the financial institutions that do a ton of the funding for all of these candidates because they benefit the most from the spending.
Yeah, because it's just like the CARES Act. All that money went to the bigwigs first, and then it filtered down to the rest of us. And by the time we got it, the currency was inflation was already taking place. So, and it's the same thing every time. They're going to print a package to send money to Ukraine or Israel, and they're going to turn around and send that money right back to Raytheon, Boeing, all the, Lockheed Martin, all these companies. So the money comes back and it goes directly. The only people getting real money out of this is the people who work there. But again,
also when we print that money, so the money we print goes to Raytheon, but it was borrowed from the banks. We don't necessarily print a ton of dollars. We print treasury bonds, and the banks buy those treasury bonds. So the $1 trillion a year we pay in interest, that goes to the banks, and they're the ones who are really taking over the political system. It's all the financial institutions. So like, I love railing against the military industrial complex. I do. I could go on for hours about like how all of them are, how Lloyd Austin, the current Secretary of Defense, was on the board of Raytheon right before he took that seat. I love, like, it's corrupt. It's the revolving door going back and forth between top people making those decisions, but those decisions are sanctioned by the banks. Like, the banks are the ones making those decisions. That's why I think it's important. There's an article from somewhere that came out right when Biden got elected, and it said BlackRock to replace Merrill Lynch in the White House this year. And so that just goes to show you, it's BlackRock, it's the financial institutions at the top that are the ones, like, the military industrial complex is an evil subsidiary benefiting from the wars, but the banks are the ones making it happen.
Well, yeah, because they fund both sides. They
Right.
fund both sides of the war. Yeah, and the thing, and you talk about Justin Amash. So even though Trump is, this other character, he's backing this other character out of Michigan, Amash still came out and said, what is going on with this Trump thing right now? This is dumb. This is an awful, awful thing. So even though Trump is, of course, going to pick a freaking rhino for Michigan, I would still say Justin Amash has an outstanding chance of winning his seat. And I hope he does, because besides Thomas Massey, we need somebody like an Amash up there. They may not be able to get anything done, but one thing they're not afraid of is coming out and saying exactly what's going on. It's not watered down. It's not convoluted. It is just straightforward. This is what happened, and they are willing to call people out, and a lot of them won't call somebody out unless it's this circus sideshow crap, like between AOC and Marjorie Taylor Greene the other day about the blonde
The
butch
fake lashes and the
Yeah.
bleach blonde, bad built butch body.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so funny. Okay, sorry, go on. Sorry.
No,
go
I'm just saying, it is funny, but at the same time, it's like, this is the best we can do? Seriously? I mean, this is the best you guys could pick? Was these two twits?
Right.
I don't know.
You know what's funny? It's funny you mentioned that, because people have been telling me that, like, the Libertarian Party Oliver for president. Like, I've gotten that reply to me specifically, and I'm just like, compared to who? Like, which party has the right to speak now? Like, is it the Green Party? Is it the Republican Party? The Democrat Party? Like, who's got the prevailing opinion now? You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I hope I've got to go back and listen tonight or at some point over the weekend, because Dave Smith is on the Patrick Bet David
Oh my
show
gosh.
debating Cuomo over COVID. Now, I really like Dave Smith. I like his podcast. I like his take. Why anybody on God's green earth with a dumb opinion would ever face that guy in a debate is beyond me, because David just absolutely destroys every person he debates. And it's not even close. He just mentally eviscerates people. And I'm like, and some of these people are like, I want to, after he won, after all those shows he was on, all the debates, whether it's the Ukraine thing, the Israel thing, and he's got people on Twitter like, you didn't debate me. And he's like, bro, come on. Like, I can't even take you seriously right now. You got these clowns on X like, you didn't debate me. Like, you think, like, that would be like me saying that I'm going to get on and debate Dave Smith and expect to win, to even get one person to say, man, you really hit it out of the park. Maybe my wife, but even my wife's going to be like, oh, my God, he destroyed you. You look like an idiot up there. So I love how these people come, crawling out from underneath their rocks and beating their internet warrior chest like, take on Dave Smith. Like, you're going to get murdered. mentally murdered by that guy. But yeah, I have got to watch the rerun of that because that's going to be that's going to be spectacular.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to watch that. I think that's going to be great. Yeah, I do love a lot of Dave Smith's work. I actually got to see him do his routine in St. Louis when he was here in April,
man.
which was it was really funny because he was talking about his show and how that surprisingly a lot of cops like his show. And he's like, but you guys realize that I'm anti-cop, right? He's like, you're the arm of the system that's, and all this other stuff. And then this one lady was trying to argue with him. And it turned out that he was like, so he's like, so all this other stuff, like trying to figure out, he's basically like, talking about how the police are, the arm of the government and whatever. And, she's like, he was trying to get someone to defend police. And she's like, she raised her hand and he's like, so why do you defend? Do you know a cop? And she's like, I was a cop. And he's like, well, what did you do? And she said, I would go into bars and bust them for serving underage people. And he's like, but so would they actually serve a minor? And she was like, no, it was me undercover pretending to be a minor. So he was like, you're busting people for pretending for serving, not even serving minors, but serving someone pretending to be a minor, and you're going to want me to back you up on this? I don't know. He did it a lot better, but it was funny.
I would have loved yeah, when I heard he was coming, I knew I couldn't make it. I was like, dang, I'd love to see him live. And hopefully, like, even if I just got to shake his hand. Again, I really like the guy. He's a brilliant guy. He's really well read. His mind's like, he's just got one of those minds like an encyclopedia, and he just holds all that information up there, and at any time he's just going to unleash it onto some unsuspecting idiot that decides, like, I could take this guy out. Like Austin Peterson. I kind of like Austin Peterson, but Austin was like saying Israel had the right to do all these things, and Dave just tore him a new one. And I'm like, well, you kind of deserved it, bro. Because listen, again, I kind of like Austin, but that dude confuses me. He's got flags he's selling now. It says Libertarians for Trump. That's one of the biggest oxymorons. I'm like, what schmuck is buying these flags? I would not hang that outside my house. Even as a joke, I wouldn't hang that up outside my house or in my house. Like, what are you doing? I don't know if he's... Sometimes I feel like he's just playing it up to be controversial, to keep people coming to watch him to see what he's going to say next, because that works really well for some people. I feel like that's what he does sometimes. I don't know. All right. I want to play this audio clip real quick, Brandon, and this comes from a professed progressive representative in California, and I want everybody to hear what she has to say, because part of it's a little dumb, but I like the point she's getting to. In fact, I'm going to have to look this up because she mentions some place in Sacramento where apparently people get caught selling kids and then they get busted and they get turned loose like 2 hours later and they go right back to that same spot again and go right back to it. Apparently there's some documentary she mentions that I'm going to have to look for. But let's listen to this clip. Let me pull it up here. And let's take a listen to this. I don't remember what her name is, but it's some good audio.
Bagman. Thank you, Mr. President and members. I'd like to say, as a progressive, proud member of this body for the last 12 years, I'm done. I'm done with us protecting people who would buy and abuse our children. I'm done. I don't want to send more black and brown men to prison. I don't want more people in prison, but I don't want people buying girls. I don't want people buying little girls anymore. And I'm tired of saying it's okay and that we have to protect the men who do it. As a mental health professional and as a social worker, I can tell you I've spent my entire career working with people who have been wounded. I'm not going to say beyond repair, but they have been wounded to their core by the abuse that's been heaped on them, oftentimes by those that they love and look to protect them. And if their parents won't do it, then by God, we should. Again, I am not arguing that we open the gates to flood our prisons with people, But I am arguing that we have a moral responsibility to say enough. Enough. We have given away enough on this area, and we've got to move back into the center, or we all look like fools and laughing stocks. And what do we stand for? I asked all of you to watch the documentary that Senator Grove was in, Senator from Kern County was just in, that talked about this very place in Sacramento where girls are being bought and sold. Men are being given a slap in the hand or a couple days, and then they're back out again, and they do the same thing. They get caught over and over and over again, and somehow that's okay. It's not okay. It is not okay anymore, and no more am I watching. Like I said, I'm leaving, but the rest of you who are going to be here for a while, let's get our stuff together and really start focusing on some of the important things. We talk about learning, and we talk about being safe. This is like at the core of it. And a lot of these kids can be throwaway kids. They're poor kids. They're kids of color. But they shouldn't have to live a life determined by what happens to them by others at a very young age, and by have the Democratic Party of California say it's okay. It's not okay. And I'm not doing it anymore, and I hope none of you do too. We have to be able to draw a line, and for me, I'm drawing a line. I urge your aye vote.
So there's that, and I agree. Now, here's my problem with progressives. I can agree, yeah, we don't want people selling little kids. Absolutely horrible. We should all be able to agree on that. That's bad. Selling kids, sexualizing kids, trafficking children, awful, horrendous thing. I wish nothing but the most evil things to happen to you if you do that. But then to tie in with that, I don't want to flood the prisons with brown and black people. Okay, well, if they're trafficking kids, what do you propose we do, lady? What do you propose that we do? Are we supposed to just like, well, you're black, so you're going to get a reduced sentence? I hate the way they try to be woke when they're saying something that I can agree with. That just bugs the crap out of me. It's like, how about you say, listen, this is not okay. If we catch you doing this, we're gonna put you in prison, but we're gonna put you under the prison. We're gonna bury you under the prison because what you're doing to the most innocent of us is evil, pure, unadulterated evil, and we will have no sympathy for you. But there has to be this woke crap woven into the message, and it's like, just say, hey, some people here in the state capital tend to want to go light on these guys. I wonder why. Are they a part of this? I mean, what are you being so nice to these people for? But I don't want to open the doors and flood the prisons with people. Well, I don't know. You could release all the people convicted of victimless crimes or the nonviolent offenders, and then you can take the weirdo creep pedophiles that literally need to be drug out in the street and probably executed, and put them in jail instead, and let them beat the crap out of each other and put it on pay-per-view. I don't care. But why dilute a good message with the woke nonsense? I don't know. That when I heard it, I was like, oh, thank God, some progressive speaking out. But then she has to put in the mic. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that people in poor areas are not horribly affected by the justice system because they can't afford attorneys, and and because the cities write these horrible laws, or the feds or the states write these horrible laws with minimum mandatory sentences and all this stuff, that they are more affected than people who make good money. Okay? I'm not saying that doesn't happen. But if you're going to sit here and be angry about kids getting sold for sex, then don't mix it with a message of, I don't want to affect minorities. If a minority person is doing it, the skin color doesn't matter. The evil that they're perpetrating does. So let's focus on that.
I think you're 100% right. I guess she was just like already anticipating her woke leftist friends coming at her with it. Like, so maybe she was just preemptively being, because, probably the first comment she's going to get is, well, these laws if she would have said it without the caveat, the first comment she's going to get on the internet is, well, these laws disproportionately affect black and brown people. So then she's going to have to automatically the first thing she's going to have to say is, I know that, but this is still a problem. So maybe she was just preemptively getting that out of the way. Like she said, she was a leftist, and she made a point against, I mean, it's just such a layup point to make, though. Like, letting out criminals who touch kids with, I guess, is she talking about like no cash bail? Is that what this is in reference to? Or
no, they're just literally California has they have been tinkering with laws to lessen the sentences of people convicted or accused of child trafficking.
That just isn't that's unbelievable to begin with.
There was a bill that was going through. It was in committee to lighten the sentences, and there was a whole boatload of people in the crowd who were, going to speak on saying this is not a good idea. And it passed the committee, and the people who were there, not in support of it, saying this is horrible, got up and screamed and called them cowards as they walked out of the room. Now, this was last year or early this year, or it was last year or something. But I remember seeing a video clip of it, and I'm like, okay, who wrote that bill? Who sponsored this bill? And it begs the question, are these people so woke? Are they so against the criminal justice system? Which I have a hard time fathoming that. But are they so against the criminal justice system that they want to lighten prison sentences for everybody? Or do they just think sex trafficking of children isn't such a big deal? Either way, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around why you would think either one of those things. I think that's evil in and of itself. But to pass that bill through committee, it's like it's one of those. Listen, I had a teacher that used to say this to us, and she said it in a joking manner, but sometimes I wonder if she wasn't onto something. If somebody would say something just to be a smart aleck in class, she would say to them, "You're the reason why sometimes mothers in the wild eat their kids." And I was like, wow. But now I get it. Now I freaking get it. I probably shouldn't have said that, but whatever. It's right. True. When you sit there and you have people willing to pass this type of legislation, it's like, what went wrong? Did you come out of the womb and the doctor dropped you and right on your head, you hit the floor and you weren't right after that? What happened in your life to get you to think like this, that this is okay?
Well, I just want to tell everybody who lives in California that if you leave your leftist woke culture behind, there's a home for you in Missouri, where we don't think touching the kids is okay, and you will go to prison at best. So
yeah,
I don't know, man. That's just it's like something that you would think that the other side would say, that would be like hyperbole. You would think that would be like 10 years ago, if someone would have told me that California was putting this bill, like gonna do this, like, oh, in 10 years California is gonna be pushing for these laws, I'd be like, that's hyperbole. And then now it's here. Like, the hyperbole is here on all sides. It's like 8 years ago, they were like, well, Donald Trump's going to arrest all of his political opponents. And now they're arresting political opponents. It's like, we're living in the now that everyone said wasn't going to happen. Like, anyone who said the slippery slope argument 10 years ago was like a logical fallacy, they're finding out the hard way that it's not, that the slippery slope is upon us and we're sliding pretty fast.
Yeah. It is weird. It's not weird. These people are getting pretty easy to telegraph. And we talked about this last time you were on the show. You can telegraph what they're going to do by what they accuse others of doing. They they in turn do it themselves. But they deflect everything to the other person or the other party. And then they turn around and do the same exact thing that they accuse the other side of doing, but then they make it all smell all flowery and nice, and not like it was rolled in dog crap. So it's, and people just, and that's how you know a lot of people are in a cult, because they get mad when the other side does it, but they cheer when their side does it. So they don't have any understanding of liberty. They don't have any understanding of freedom. They don't have any understanding of the Constitution. They base everything, or most everything, on emotion, and thinking just goes out the window.
So to what you just said, that they blame, they'll like, so Biden put some tariffs on China last week. Was it last week or early this week? But he put new tariffs on China. And to credit Joe Biden, he was right when Trump was president, and Trump put on these tariffs, and he said this is a tax on the American people. And he's 100% right, because businesses are in it to make money. So whenever you put a tax on a business, they're gonna pass the loss as far as they can. So you tax a Chinese business, they're not going to take the loss. They're going to raise their prices. So then that good comes over to America more expensive. The American business takes it, turns it, and sells it to the American people at a higher price. So the only people who lose whenever you tariff China is the American people. And apparently Joe Biden knew that when Trump was president, and now all of a sudden that Trump's president, or that Biden's president, he puts on these tariffs and everyone's praising, oh, he's finally stepping up to China. Look at what he's doing with China, these tariffs. It's not true. He knew that these tariffs were a tax on the American people. He did it to look tough on China for the elections, and it's a bad play. It's a tax on the American people. Any government interference in business is going to be a tax on the American people, because every other country is socialist, or they're going to a lot of countries, they sell their they're export countries. Like with China, we take their goods. So when you tax them on imports, they're just going to raise prices. Then we're going to pay more. But anyway,
but Brandon, I can't believe you're saying that, because Democrats stand up for the poor people. How dare you say that about Biden? He stands up for the poor and the less fortunate and the minorities. So how dare you accuse him of helping to raise prices when they're already sky high? I can't hardly believe the words that are coming out of your mouth. I know exactly what you're talking about. You're exactly right. But sometimes you have to throw that stupidity out there, because people, when Biden does it good, Trump does it bad. On the other side, Trump does it good, Biden does it bad. It's the most god-awful tennis match you can have. To me, it's like watching golf. But it's two people who've never played golf, and they're shanking it into the woods, and they keep walking the ball back and hitting it again, and the people in the crowd are just cheering. Like, I don't watch golf, but that's not good golf. That's not something I want to see. And it's I don't know, man.
It's just, I think that it's that the American public, and it's not their fault. I think like we talked about this last time too, but I'll just go over it again. It's that in schools, public schools and private schools, they don't emphasize that your rights are inalienable. The rights of the government, like your rights don't come from the Constitution. They come from your creator, celebrated by the Declaration of Independence and acknowledged by the Bill of Rights. And until we get that back as like a fundamental basis in schools, we're going to keep having this golf match of people who abuse your rights back and forth. And when they keep accusing the other side of doing it, because they think that they just have this misguided view of what the government is. Like, for too long, people have just been under the assumption that the government is there to help the poor and the disenfranchised and help people. And it's not. The government is there to keep us protected from foreign invasion and to regulate interstate commerce. That's it. Like, there's nothing else that it does that says that, like, charity, I guarantee you, if the government gave everyone all of their tax dollars back and was able to wipe away all of our deficit, charities in 2026, whatever year that would be, 2025, if they got this done by next year, then charity would skyrocket. That there wouldn't, you would see a lot more, you would see like the extreme funding of drug rehabilitation programs and all sorts of like amazing social programs that come from like the church and from different charities that aren't even funded by the government. There was a guy running for, he's running as a libertarian somewhere on the East Coast. I can't remember, but the National Libertarian Party held a space on X where if you were a candidate, you could go on there and jump in. And a nonprofit in, I want to say Maryland, has served more homeless people than the entire state program did, and they only spent $500,000, and the state spent $1.5 million on the board for its group that feeds the homeless. So it just goes to show you that, like, even if you're this big-hearted social leftist who wants to see big change in the world, the government is in your way.
And you bring up something about the spending between the private sector and the public sector. Look at the pier, the $350 million pier that we built off the coast to get aid to Gaza. After 12 days, it just sank into the ocean. $350 million gone. And like, oh, well, it was big waves. And it's like, so you didn't account for any of that. You thought the ocean is always still, and you just put this thing out there, and it was just going to stay there. At $350 million sinking to the bottom of the sea. And that's a perfect example of government in general. Like, we want to get aid. We're going to spend $350 million to build this pier, and it's going to last 12 days, and it's going to sink. And then next time we'll build double that, or it'll take double that amount to build it because it'll last longer. It'll probably last, like, I don't know, 18 days, and it'll sink to the bottom of the sea. And we'll just do this ad nauseum because that's government in a nutshell. Waste, bloat.
Sorry. Yeah. So I'm just going to make a prediction right now. I want you to write this down if you're listening. Joe Biden just funded a bus program where he wants to turn buses electric. He wants to start making public school buses electric. I guarantee you that this is going to end disastrously. I guarantee you it's going to be the same thing. They're going to spend a bunch of money, and they're going to end up getting like one school district. They're going to spend like probably over $1 billion or $900 million, and they're going to have like one school district's buses are going to run electric. And then they're probably going to run a story like 2 years after that talking about how half the buses are broke down and they're going back to gasoline buses anyway. That's happened too many times. Every time they try to like the government tries to pump a bunch of money into like these environmental programs, that's the biggest waste of money. They never, like, just bang for your buck. Even if you put aside all your values, bang for your buck. The government in the business of energy efficiency is got to be one of the worst track records of all time.
Yeah, no doubt. I give this example. Years ago in Forest Park, people fundraised to fix up Forest Park. And so they went around, they did all this private fundraising, got all the money together, went out and did it themselves, and did a fantastic job. And people were like, why did you do it? They're like, because if we would have had the city do it, it would have cost 3 times the amount. It may have never gotten done. Only half of it got done. Or if it did get done, it wouldn't look this nice. So we took it upon ourselves. And you can relate that story to anything that the government gets itself involved in compared to the private sector. The private sector is always going to do it cheaper. Now, this is all dependent, of course, because we see the subsidies in government. They give it to private industry, but, the price triples because they're like, oh, we're getting taxpayer dollars. This is awesome. Move the government out of the equation altogether. It's privately funded. It's always, unless it's just run by complete and total idiots, it's always going to operate more efficiently and more cost effectively. It's going to look prettier. Everything's going to be way better because it's their money. They understand they're holding other people's money in their hand, and they're going to do the best that they can do with it because they're not the government, and they can't just go out and go, hey, we really screwed the pooch last time, but we're going to need more of your money, and just take it from you. They can't do that. They can't operate in that fashion. So they have to do the best that they can do with what they're given. And so that's the outcome you're going to get. Government outcome is questionable. Is it A, is it ever going to get done? B, are they actually going to get it done for that cost? I mean, the answer to both those questions is an automatic no. If your question is, are they going to screw this up royally and make us all hate our lives? Then generally the answer to that question is yes. Just let the private... Okay, let me ask you this, Brandon, because you said I could ask you anything.
Ask away.
So we're talking about privatization, and some libertarians speak on privatization of police in your local area. What are your thoughts on things like that? Privatization of police, privatization of street departments, or whatever else. What are your thoughts on things like that?
I think that if we could we'd have to for that to be even something on the table, something feasible, we'd have to make everything else the libertarian utopia first. Like if you wanted to go to a private security police force, I mean, like the justice system now has winners and losers, and the more money you have in the current justice system, the better you're going to do. But it's a lot more fair than a private security system handling these things. Like if you had $1 billion and you murdered somebody, just practically speaking, it seems like you'd get away with it. Not that that doesn't happen, I'm sure anyway, but it just seems to me that privatizing the police force, like the roads, I'm actually way more for. I think that's way more feasible. I think businesses would build the roads because they want people to come, and I'm sure infrastructure is expensive. Infrastructure throughout the whole country, highway systems and everything, they're all expensive, but they get funded for by the taxpayers to begin with. So I guarantee you that if you just put businesses in charge of putting roads to their business, you'd see a lot of progress in that way. I feel like if you just had like you said, if you got the government out of it and everyone in the neighborhood was like, hey, we're going to pay for a patch of this concrete over here, you guys want to pitch in, you'd get a lot more support that way than if you hire the government to do it. The government hires 6 contractors or 5 project managers and 3 managers below him, and then that guy finally hires the contractor who finally gets the work done. Yeah, I think the roads is more feasible. The police, I have my own qualms with the police. They are the armed wing of the authoritarian government at times, but I mean, my local police force in O'Fallon, they're just looking out for people committing crimes. We elect the officials who create the bills, and so to put the blame on them, I think is, first of all, a little bit. It's naive in a lot of instances. I'm again, there are bad police, and there are good police who don't tell on bad police, which makes them not the best police. So, I understand that they're you're going up against a culture, but we live in a practical world where I just don't see us being able to get rid of the police force and being safe. A lot of people own guns. A lot of libertarian owns guns, but there's a lot of people who don't own guns. So then if you don't have a police force and you don't have the money to afford your private security for that weekend, what are you, on your own? What is it, the purge at that point? Again, I would, and I'm not saying that it would turn into the purge. I'm saying that there's going to be no system's perfect, but I think the police definitely protect those who are disenfranchised at the moment. And I'd love to be in a debate or not in a debate, because I'm not ready to debate on it, but I'd love to hear a debate or a conversation with 2 smart people in depth on this. But I know I've heard Michael Malice speak on it before, and he's a very anarchist, but I don't know. I'd have to hear more of a debate on it before I weigh in on that.
Yeah, fair enough. And you are right. It will take, to privatize police, it would take a much more educated public. And again, that means maybe again, this is a utopian thought, I'm sure, but this is getting rid of government-run education and privatizing that. Locally, the local areas get to decide how their schools operate, what the curriculum is, all that. And then but the education of the people is key first. You have to understand that, again, your rights don't stem from government. They are natural rights enumerated in the Constitution. I have to bring this up. RFK apparently has said that he wants reparations for black farmers. $5 billion package, reparations for black farmers. Now, this was supposed to be added into like the CARES Act, and then white farmers took it to the courts, and the courts are but here's the thing. They're like, this goes against our constitutional rights. Like, no, it's not your constitutional rights. It goes against the Constitution because everybody's supposed to be equally represented under the law, but it's not violating your constitutional rights per se. Tom Martz, again, that man has got me off the wagon of saying constitutional rights and saying natural rights. He's right. We have to get into that rhythm and that mindset that our rights are naturally occurring. Because to say they're constitutional rights kind of says that when you're born, they put your little baby footprint on a document and here's your rights as given to you. It almost like the founders gave you your rights instead of saying these were naturally occurring and they're just enumerated in this document so you're aware of them. And this is what government's supposed to protect. But to say they're constitutional rights almost sounds like you think the founders gave you the rights. No, they fought for natural rights. But it does lead back to the education of our youth and the parents of those youth now. And it's been going on for generations. There's been books written in the 60s and 70s of the intentional dumbing down in public schools by former teachers. So this information is out there. But yeah, to get to privatization, or like David Dwyer says here, a mix of private but also voluntarily funded police force. It's a good experiment to see how things would work out. You do a mix, see what, and then kind of fix it here and there, experiment about. I don't have an issue with any of those things. I don't have an issue with privatization. I don't have an issue with decentralization at all. But it still comes down. As much as we'd like to lay all the blame at a politician's foot, it still comes down to the people who elect these individuals and then don't hold them accountable or let them deflect the blame to the other side of the political aisle and not say, hey, dude, you did that too. You're kind of at fault here. Straighten up or we'll find somebody else. It's still, and Brandon, I think you and I can agree on this. The public at large doesn't like it when you say that. They don't like to be blamed for what's going on in this country.
Oh, man.
But it's the truth. It's the freaking truth.
Yeah. Just in a small schism of what you're talking about, like, I felt the same way at the Libertarian convention when it was all over. Like, not that no hate going one way or the other, but I just felt like I blamed myself for not knowing more about the party. Like, I didn't do my research like when I got there, and so it was hard. I didn't get to put the feet. I wasn't in the right position to make that kind of judgment, and I feel like it's the big point you're making is that we need the public to be informed so they can hold the feet to the fire of the people who are doing them wrong way more than they are now. So yeah, I definitely agree with you on that.
And honestly, we need people more. Well, and I think it would help a little bit. Now, how much it would help, I don't know, but every little bit helps. I'm not saying everybody has to be just like Ron Paul, but we need more personalities like a Ron Paul who can put the message forth in a way that grabs people's attentions, like the whole 9/11 thing between him and Giuliani. That grabbed a lot of people's attention. Dave Smith said he was anti-war for a long time. Then Ron Paul starts talking about the Federal Reserve. He's like, I don't think it's that way. Then he starts reading. He's like, holy crap, it is that bad and worse. But we need people just running for office, whether it's locally, state, nationally, whatever, speaking these words. We need more people sure. Does it diminish their chances of winning? Maybe. But we still need people running for office speaking this message, whether they're Republicans or Democrats or Libertarians. Now, getting people out of those two parties to say the things that we're saying right now, a lot of times is difficult. But those people are out there, and we have to raise them up. We have to back them, and we have to help spread their message. The message, and Brandon, I'm sure you'll agree with me on this too. Liberty, freedom is very simple. It's basically your rights end where someone else's rights begin. Don't do to somebody what you wouldn't want done to you. Don't steal their stuff and don't hurt them. It's one of the most basic concepts, especially when it comes to politics or governance, that you can ever come across. And yet it seems like people have a hard time grasping this very simple thing, this very simple principle, that your freedom ends where, once I leave my yard, go to my neighbor's yard, I can't demand that they do something, because my freedom ended when I stepped off the street and went into their yard to demand that they do something that appeals to me. I automatically, I've already done wrong. I've already screwed up. So I wish people could understand better how easy the principles of liberty actually are.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's one of the biggest uphill battles, and I know I told you this last time, but it's the media and the school system. It's the information that comes out and how you form opinions, because like schools, that's where they teach you to think. It's how you form opinions, and it's that go along, like, they have control of the information from the time you reach kindergarten and then well after the time you're out of college, because it was all over the news. It's why the internet is such a big, important tool. It's why podcasters and alternative media outlets are one of the biggest things the Libertarian Party, like, and not even just libertarians, but anyone who loves freedom. It's one of the biggest things you can do is support shows like this, like your show. I try to watch it as much as I can. I try to go back and watch old ones as much as I can, just because I really like your message a lot. And if we had more people like you, if our kids were listening to more people like you, instead of getting their news from, just even like on Google, like you open up an the right or the left, whichever one of the directions, it comes up with just a news feed. So how many 14-year-old kids are just getting their news feed? They think they're getting the news because they're reading a little tiny headline article from like all of these super woke leftist corporations, and that's where the problem is. It's the flow of information that's just not getting out to people. And I'm homeschooling my kid for sure. I try to promote I try to donate to and promote as many different freedom-loving shows and podcasts and ideas. I try to buy as many books and support like the Libertarian Institute and all kinds of different groups. So that the messaging, it's the messaging that for sure is where we're losing. But we're up against a 200-year-old entity. I guess not 200-year-old. I'd say the establishment really began. That's a good question. Where would you say that the establishment began? Like the death of Kennedy, I guess, would be like the big one.
I would actually say, I'm going back further, and I may be wrong. I would say Civil War era with Lincoln suspending habeas corpus and imprisoning people who spoke out against the war. I think establishment type things started grabbing a hold around the Civil War era. It laxed a little bit, and then you get into Woodrow Wilson era, the Federal Reserve, and then after that it really took a nosedive, because you had presidents like FDR and so many others that started brainstorming these big government ideas. But I think it started in the Civil War. And I hate that I have to
preface or defend that. Yeah.
Preface what I'm about to say with this phrase. I don't think slavery was a good idea. People don't understand slavery was on the way out before the Civil War began. Slavery was becoming a stigma. There was a bad stigma attached. It was on its way out when the Civil War began. And for people to sit here and constantly say that the Civil War was fought for slavery. It's like, go read a book. Go read a freaking book. Hear what Lincoln had to say about slaves. Offered to send them to an island and all kinds of other stuff. And it's like, okay, from that point on, a lot of people, well, the history part of it's lost. The South seceded. The North didn't like it. The federal government hated it. Lincoln made statements like, how are we going to recoup this tax revenue? So it seemed more about money and them not liking the fact that the state seceded from the Union more than it was about slavery. And I think, again, between that and then the suspension of habeas corpus, amongst a lot of other things, and it's progressing to Woodrow Wilson and Theodore Wilson and FDR, or I'm sorry, Theodore Roosevelt, and then FDR and the big government guys but again, I think one of the big death knells for our country was the assassination of JFK. I tend to be in the camp where I think when he started talking about, dissolving the CIA and the FBI, maybe going back to greenbacks, that was a threat to the establishment, and they're like, oh, yeah, well, okay, we can put this all on one kooky, crazy, supposed Russian sympathizer and take you out. And I heard a comic years ago say that when a president gets elected and he thinks he's going to do these things, they come in, they sit him in a room, and they show him the Zapruder film as just a reminder, you think you're going to do these things. Here, we're going to show you why you probably don't want to do the things you say you're going to do. Now, that could be complete rubbish, but it seems feasible, sounds logical. But I think the dissolving of the republic began Civil War started in 1861, so 160 years ago. That's my opinion.
I could even see it going even back before then. I could see, not necessarily with the founding fathers, but some of them, all it takes is a person with money paying the person who prints the news article to print whatever they want. I bet that's been going on for forever. And that's the thing is, like, the money owns the media, and it has forever. And we're actually in a revolutionary time against that. Like, where information is so accessible to everyone. Like, it's maybe we're on our way there. Maybe it's just slower. It takes longer than people. Like, if you're in the moment and you wake up, maybe it's going to take longer than other people. But eventually, more and more generations are going to stop paying attention to legacy media. Like, every year, people, and just people are going to be less and less interested in, like, these dying legacy medias. You can tell by how low their sales are, by how many people don't watch CNN anymore, how many people aren't watching Fox News, especially after Tucker left. I know a lot of people who just really don't even have an interest in hearing what any of those people on Fox have to say anymore. And so Tucker Carlson on Twitter gets way more views than he did when he was on Fox News. And that is a great thing for liberty if the right people can capitalize on it. Now, and the government's clearly aware of that because of the Twitter files. You can see that they're clearly afraid of any, like, that's why all the government entities got in on Facebook and all the other social media sites. It's why they were buying them all off and telling them who to block and who to censor to keep their 501c3 status. They're not, isn't that what it is? They got to keep the, not 501c3. That's or whatever it is that keeps them from being
it's their tax exempt status. Yeah, 501c3. 501c3.
Right. So, it just goes to show that, like, they are definitely afraid of the internet out, like, beating them to the punch. And I think that's why they're trying to censor. I don't necessarily know if that's exactly why they're trying to censor TikTok, or if this is just like a payback favor to the American social media companies to basically ban a competitor. It's like, that's my opinion on it, is I think it's just an excuse for Facebook and Meta to ban a competitor. But either way, the main point being is that they're still actively trying to control all sources of information. And I think promoting, I'll quit beating the dead horse, but just promoting independent thinkers and independent media is one of the best things you can do to promote liberty.
I agree. Two things. I might want to backtrack on my previous statement of the Civil War. I might want to backtrack all the way to things like the Alien Sedition Act, which says you can't criticize the president, but you could criticize the vice president. I don't remember. I don't remember what president it was in office, but this was 20 years after the birth of the nation. You had the Alien and Sedition Act. That could have been the start of it. The first central bank or the first national bank could have been the start of it. Now that went away and now it's back, but whatever. Things like that did not help. 2, I believe that the government just wants to control TikTok like they've taken, even though they say they didn't, like they've controlled Twitter and Facebook and all the rest. They want to be able to propagandize the people on TikTok as well as what they've done on the other platforms. I think they just want control of it. I don't think this is a favor. I think it's just like everything else. They want control of all the information that we see, that we hear, to make sure that we stay good little statists and we stay in our lane. I think that's what they're doing.
Yeah. 100%.
Well, my friend, we're at a little over 2 hours, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the show now. But like I said, when I get done, I'll shoot you a message on Twitter to let you know. I'm going to Skype call you again to have another conversation with you. I've got a couple of things I want to bounce off of you. But I appreciate your time. I appreciate all your input. I was happy that you went so you could give me some insight on the convention in D.C. this past weekend. Again, it had some entertainment value, as childish as that seems. But go ahead, so I don't screw it up. Plug your website again, and so you'll get it right because I'll get it wrong, and then we'll go from there.
All right, yeah. To anyone who wants to stand up against the deep state and the dark money in Washington, go to Daugherty, DAUGHERTY, the number 4 Congress.com. For the voters, not the donors.
All right. Well, Brandon, again, really enjoyed having you back on the show. You and I we have good conversations here, and I thoroughly enjoy it. I hope you'll just keep coming back, no matter what you're doing in life. I hope you just keep coming back on the show, and we can have these liberty conversations. I thoroughly enjoy it. Best of luck to you as you continue with your campaign. And again, open door policy. You want to come back on, discuss some other things. You're more than welcome to. I'd be happy to have you back on.
I appreciate it, John. Thanks.
All right. Take care. And like I said, I'll call you back in just a little bit.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, folks. There he was, Mr. Brandon Daugherty. Again, I love talking to the guy. I think we have a great conversation. And I enjoy his input. But with that being said, it's time to end the show. We went a little over 2 hours. Sometimes you just have guests on where you can just keep going and on. We could have gone probably another hour, and I still had plenty of gas left in the tank. But, I got to get this audio edited and uploaded and what have you, and go from there. So, again, thanks to all of you who continue to download this show, watch the live streams, listen on radio. I greatly appreciate each and every single one of you. The live chat was nice and lively tonight. And one of my fellow co-workers, Chad Humphrey, was in the live stream tonight. And I don't know, David, I don't know if you were in the live stream before, and because I have old man brain. So, David Dwyer, it was good to see you in here. And, of course, we had, we had Dark Helmet, we had Voodoo Queen, we had Missouri Freedom Initiative, and we had Mr. Tom Martz in as well. Tom's always got some funny insights. They're right on. And, but they're also kind of humorous, and that's just Tom and his personality. But anyway, with that being said, folks, thanks so much for joining me again this week. I don't have a guest slated as of yet for next week. The 14th, I will have Bill Slants on, who is the Libertarian candidate for governor here in the state of Missouri. I'm going to have him on. We'll just ask him some questions. We'll get his thoughts on Missouri politics and, what direction he'd like to see the state go. So you guys come in with your questions. I will ask them. We'll get an answer. You can make up your mind. But Bill Slants will be on with me on the 14th of June. All right, folks, take care of yourselves. Have a great evening. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Friday right here on the Missouri Liberty Report.